Good morning. This is our regularly scheduled press conference for follow-up questions on the City Council meeting last night. I'm going to pull this down. If you have any questions, you can text them to us at 662-305-9402. That's 662-305-9402. Before we start taking questions, I want to make a few comments. I've had several visitors and people calling about the crime issues in Columbus, and I just want to mention to the citizens that we're staying focused on those issues here in town. I'm in constant contact with the chief of police and the sheriff, talking about the situations that we're having here in Columbus and what we need to do to be able to address these concerns, and that we will keep doing that on an ongoing basis, and we'll keep you updated on that as well. I also mentioned last night at the council meeting that I have been interviewing firms to do a potential forensic audit for the city. I will be making a recommendation soon to the council for that. A forensic audit will need to be done by a professional firm that has expertise in that area. As you will recall, several months ago, the state auditor, when he was speaking to Rotary here in Columbus, mentioned the fact that the city should consider that, and we definitely are doing that. It will be my recommendation that we have one. It will be up to the city council to determine whether we actually do, and we'll have more information on that coming in the coming days. Also, next week on the 26th, Thursday, we will have a special call meeting to discuss several issues, one being continuing conversation on the mask mandate that we put in place last night. The mandate that the City Council voted to approve last night only applies to city-owned buildings. There was some discussion by other council members who would like to consider making this a citywide ordinance, and so that's what we'll be discussing next Thursday. We're also going to be looking at that meeting. We'll be discussing the city budget and the restructuring of some of the bonds that we have for a lower interest rate. And I'm going to ask Mark Alexander to come up in a few minutes and speak more to that. And with that, I also, before go into taking questions, I also want to comment again on the fact that another area that the city has been focusing heavily on since I took office is the Public Works Department, and trying to make sure we're getting a lot of the debris and the mowing of the city and picking up other things that people have left on the street. We've been working really hard to try to take care of some of those issues, which have been based on several things from low employment at the Public Works Department, also leftover things that people had put out during the tornado from 2019, and also people continuing to put things out thinking that the city would be able to pick those up. We've tried to address those issues through the media and on social media. We continue to take calls about that. But what we have done, I've recently visited with the Board of Supervisors and asked them to help us with some of the debris pickup. And they have agreed to do that, which we're very grateful for, and that will start later this week. So with that, if we have any questions from the media, we have a few that are here.
Got a couple right off the top. The first one is, you mentioned in your opening statement that you're getting calls of crime concerns. What are the specific crime patterns that y'all are seeing, or things that y'all are running into?
Well, I think what we're seeing is what is typical in a lot of areas, but if you notice, there's a lot of concern about the number of guns on the street, the shootings that we're seeing, the drive-by shootings. We recently had someone with a gun go into a person's home. We're seeing issues with drugs on the streets and gambling, and a lot of the typical things that you're seeing in other cities. But I've had a lot of citizens come in with real concerns about what they're seeing in their neighborhoods, what's happening to their family members. And so that's a huge concern of mine. I think we've got to do everything we can to make our citizens feel safe in the community. And I'm determined to make sure that we're doing a better job of that. Some of the concerns are the number of police officers that we have on the street. Also people are concerned about the level of experience of some of our officers. And so we're looking at all those things to make sure that we're offering the very best services from the police department that we can.
And what is the current staffing level compared to the budgeted number of officers?
Well, the largest number I think we've had in the police force in recent years was 70. We were down below 60. I believe now we're up just a little over 60. We'll have to get that exact number for you. But
is the budget, is it still 68? Is that?
Right, about that, yeah. We can double check that to be sure. Yeah, but we are budgeted for that.
And moving on to masks, right now the case instances of new cases are higher now than they were at any point in the pandemic last year. When there was a mask mandate, plus you've got more than 60% of Mississippians who still don't have, still aren't fully vaccinated. This city has had a mask mandate, citywide mask mandate before. With cases up and vaccination rates low, what is different now that would cause hesitancy in implementing a citywide mask mandate?
Sure, and that's a very good question. And in fact, I was just before this press conference, I was talking to a concerned citizen who called in about the numbers that we were reporting on our Facebook page, the number of patients that we listed that had been at the local hospital here. Their concern was that was misinformation and that it made people, it wasn't clear enough as to how many patients had actually been there and how many had actually been diagnosed with COVID on a regular basis. They said that it felt like that it was saying that was what was happening on a daily basis, when that's not exactly what the numbers show. And I say that example to point out again that there's a lot of controversy around this pandemic and has been from the very beginning. And I think it's fair to say that there have been missteps along the way on policies from the national government to the state level to the local level. So, and I think that we're learning as we go through the process. My goal as mayor has been to make sure that the information that we share is from the medical experts. I want to do everything I can not to make this a political issue in the city. I referenced last night that the other cities, I think there are 4 that have brought the mandate back. Only in City Hall, there's no one that, to my knowledge, any city in the state outside of Jackson, who I think kept theirs the entire time, that is actually making it a citywide mandate at this time. So we're doing everything we can to get the appropriate information to make the best decision for our citizens. So that'll be some of the discussions that we have at the meeting next Thursday. There are a lot of opinions, and there's, this not only affects people's health, but it also can affect their livelihood. From small businesses is a real concern, obviously. So what I'm asking our city council to do, and those who are a part of my administration, is to help make sure we get accurate information and that we get it out to the community in a timely fashion to be able to make those decisions.
Okay, well, not to put you on the spot.
No, it's fine. Put me on the spot.
You mentioned missteps on multiple levels of government. Do you think that the mask mandate last year was a misstep? And where are you personally on whether you support the citywide mask mandate?
With the mandate, I think the way that it was communicated probably could have been better. If a year ago, when the city was making these decisions, I think that it would have been wise to bring in local health professionals and local business people to sit down as adults in the room and actually discuss the data and the facts. I think that it's hard to find a one solution fits all. I respect people's opinions, and I think that we need to work from facts and not from hysteria and gossip. I've asked people to avoid the name calling and finger pointing, but let's try to work together on this. I will be honest with you, I wear a mask. I know that there's a lot of different conclusions out there of whether they're effective or not. I like to err on the side of being safe. There's no guarantees in any of this, and these are unprecedented times. So my big concern is for the citizens of Columbus and Lowndes County. I'm very concerned about what's going on with children now. The fact that a 13-year-old passed away in this state concerns me greatly. It should everybody. So personally, I have been vaccinated. My family, from my 89-year-old mother to my adult children and my wife, have all been vaccinated. We've all done fine. We also continue to wear masks when we're in tight quarters or in places, especially when we're in public. And try to always do it in a way that will keep ourselves safe, but others as well. I like to say, I think people should use common sense on this. I think a lot of these policies that the cities are implementing, it's very hard to monitor this in any way that you would be, holding people, fine people, or arrest people.
Well, and that was my next question, was how big a piece does enforcement have on, or enforcement feasibility have on moving forward?
Mm-hmm. Well, and see, and that was, and I could let Jeff speak to this if he would like to as an attorney. There's a lot of different opinions out there, and there are a lot of unknowns on whether you have the authority to actually do that. There are court cases about it. Mm-hmm. I would say that it would be very difficult for us to, in my personal opinion, the council will make a decision on this. In my personal opinion, as mayor, I think it would be very hard for our police department to be able to go around and enforce and do it in a fair manner. It would literally be almost impossible. That's where a lot of the debate came in last time. Some businesses felt like they were targeted. Others felt like they were able to get away with it because nobody was out patrolling their areas. We just don't have the manforce to do that. I just don't think that's logical, in my opinion. However, I think that by setting a mandate for city buildings, that we're setting an example of trying to encourage people to do it. At the end of the day, we're trying to make sure, and again, nobody has the exact answers on this, but we're trying to make sure that we're keeping people safe and healthy. And so a little bit of an inconvenience now, I think, could go a long way. I would encourage people to talk to their physicians and to consider getting vaccinated. I think that's a big part of the problems that we're having. I understand people's concerns, and it affects people differently, other health concerns, religious beliefs. There are all types of reasons. But when you live in a free society, we all have rules and regulations that we have to follow at times. There have been, people have been required to be vaccinated to attend school for a long time for different diseases. We're required to wear seatbelts in a car now. Some businesses don't allow you to smoke inside, the business. There are all types of issues like that nobody is ever completely happy about that we deal with as a free society. But when we're in an unprecedented time like this, in my opinion, when we're talking about potential death of individuals from a virus that we don't completely understand, and that there are several variants out there now that we could be facing, I would like to ask citizens to consider being as safe as possible. And that was a long answer to a short question. But I believe you were asking for my personal opinion on it, and that's where I stand on it.
All right. As far as the meeting next week, talking about the restructuring of bonds. I want to get a little more information on that, what bonds we're talking about, and what that looks like.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I was gonna get Mark to come up if he would.
Stand there.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Mark, and talk about, what we're looking at on the restructuring of some of the bonds.
Okay. We're primarily only looking at one bond issuance, which is the, not this bond, it would have been the 2016 paving bond, or whatever was in there. I mean, it was primarily for paving infrastructure, et cetera, similar to what just passed now. So the state, for their bonds sets, they want to see a 3% net of everything change savings before they will do any bond redemptions, consider it. So after talking with our bond attorney and our financial advisor, who are running some projections on it, we think we're going to be well above that on our savings. And, you know, basically it's, do you think that the interest rates are going to go any lower? I mean, that's kind of where we are.
That bond was around 5, was it 5 or 5.5 million?
I think it's 5.5, but I can double check.
Yeah. How much is still owed on it?
I can look.
Okay.
I think I've got it. I think I've got what it would be as of the end of our fiscal year. Not so it'd be 9/30. I think I've got it. I can look.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, I mean, the reasoning in doing it is essentially just like somebody refinancing their house right now. You've got a ton of house refinances. The interest rates are low. You know, you can get in there and get some long-term savings. Now, part of the difference is that the term of the bond will not change. So we're not extending the term. The term will stay the same.
And that was 20 years to begin with.
No, I don't think it was 20. I want to say it was either 12 or 15.
Okay.
But it was not 20.
Okay.
The city has not, to what we have right now on the debt schedule, has no 20-year bonds. Everything is shorter than that. It's either 12, 15, or maybe even some that are 10.
Mark, while you're still there, we had a question sent in to us that the city will continue to pick up the mattresses and furniture that's already on the side of the street until it's done, correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tricky situation. So, yes, we do not want, you know, it's kind of the same thing of everybody living in a civil society. You know, we don't mind picking it up if it's been out there. What we're trying to do is, and this was my contention, is that the city, by its charter, is supposed to be picking up brush of a certain size. Okay, that's what it says. Okay, because we have been picking up things that we weren't necessarily supposed to pick up, we weren't doing what we were supposed to do, what the taxpayers have been paying for, which is picking up the green waste and the you know, trees and limbs and things. And that was, you know, supposed to be, if a homeowner cuts things on their property, the trees, they can put it out there, we would pick it up. In picking up all the other things, we weren't doing that. So my thing was to try to, look, we got to get some of the stuff picked up and go back to serving the citizens and pick it up. So yes, if there's stuff out there and people know where somebody has put it, if they will either call the Action Center or put it on See-Click-Fix, we will pick it up. Or the other thing is they can email me at malexander@columbusms.org. That's actually the easiest way, and I can get somebody to pick it up. But I would, as a citizen, ask citizens, please stop putting stuff out on the road. Right now we have, we have a open top dumpster off 15th Street South. That's Waste Bros, the old Mississippi Industrial Waste location. That during their working hours, you can put bulky items, including mattresses, old chairs, whatever, okay, out there. If you are a city resident, it's for city residents. That location will also take tires for city residents, up to 30 per month per person.
At no charge.
At no charge. We will also take at 6th Avenue South and 7th Street Waste Pro has the recycling there. We will take old tube TVs and any older like tower computers or electronics or things like that. Now, all these things but the tires are temporary measures to try to prevent the dumping. The tires will stay. That is a function of MDEQ. They have an MDEQ grant, which the city is also looking into getting, that would serve the citizens, because MDEQ wants to keep tires out of the landfill.
Thank you.
Anything else you want me to talk about, Mayor?
That's good.
Okay.
Thanks, Mark. And let me echo something he said about picking up debris, and it's basically anything that grows in your yard. Those are the types of things that the city will pick up, and bag leaves. As I mentioned earlier, the furniture and things like that, the city was working on that for a while after the 2019 storm to try to help people out. And then people just got used to kind of doing that. And the city kept doing it, when they could, and so there was some damage to some of the vehicles because of it. Our boom trucks are not made to pick up that type of thing. So I asked that the citizens work with us on this. If there's stuff out there that's been there a while, give us a call. We'll walk you through the steps. If you go to our Facebook page, we explain exactly what the city will do and what we can't do, but also where, as Mark mentioned, there are drop-off spots within the city. The appearance of our city is very important, not only to those of us who live here, but those who visit. It says something about our community. And we're also working on ideas to work with different groups who are trying to help with the litter that we're seeing in the community. I would ask people to please, take time to put your trash in the proper location. And that's something that we are looking at, finding ways to help people and help the community get things cleaned up. So please work with us with that in any way that you can. Do we have any other questions that
That's
came
it,
in?
Mayor.
Yeah, one more.
Sure.
I understand there were some personnel matters during executive session last night, and wanted to get
Sure.
what details were available.
Sure. We did go into executive session last night for 3 personnel issues related to the Columbus Police Department, and I'm going to let our counsel, Jeff Turnage, come up and speak to that.
Good morning. Last night in executive session, the city took up 3 matters of personnel related to job performance, professional competency of 3 individuals in the police department, 1 auxiliary police officer and 2 regular officers, full-time. And the first case was an auxiliary officer, and the mayor and city council, on recommendation of the chief, terminated the auxiliary officer for misconduct, disobedience, and I think it was a 4-2 vote, if I remember that right. And the next 2 matters were regular officers with a record of tardiness, and they were recommended for a 3-day suspension, and on a 4-2 vote, that was also approved by the mayor and city council to suspend them without pay for 3 days to hopefully encourage them to show up on time. Because you got officers coming off a 12-hour shift, they don't want to have to be waiting another 15 minutes or 5 minutes to go home to their families. That's the issue.
Yes, and in situations like that, the chief will bring a recommendation to the city council, and then the city council votes on those decisions after hearing from the chief, and then the employees that are in question are also there to be able to make their case. And then after that, the council votes.
All good, Mayor.
That's all we got?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for everybody for tuning in.
Thank you.
Have a good day.